If Elden Ring is so great, then why am I not playing it?
You guys think we're going to get any Elden Ring DLC news on the Game Awards in December 8th? Because it seems to me like that would be a good place for some Elden Ring DLC
Yeah.
news, an announcement, a release date. Like, just imagine it. We get a nice Elden Ring sweep. They win Game of the Year, Best Direction, Best Art Direction, Best whatever the hell, Best Narrative, all the things, Elden sweep. And then Keeley is like, and we got one more thing for you. Plays a little clip of the DLC,
Yep.
gives us a release date.
That's what's going to happen.
That would be so amazing. I need it. I need a DLC announcement.
That will happen.
Anyway, hello and welcome. This is Reddit Tosker. And today let's do something we don't usually do on this channel. Let's criticize Elden Ring.
Okay.
Oh, I know what you're thinking. You're saying to yourselves, Reddit Tosker, we can't go around criticizing Elden Ring on this channel. It's off-brand. That's not what we do here. I thought you said that Elden Ring was a masterpiece. And you're right, dear viewer. I do think that Elden Ring is a masterpiece. I loved it when I was playing it, and I love it now. But you know, oddly enough, I'm not really playing it right now. And I stopped playing it relatively soon after I finished my first playthrough.
Okay.
And that's weird, because that's not something I did with any of the other Souls games. I played Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, and Dark Souls 3 way more than I ever played Elden Ring. In each of those games, I had at least 3 or 4 builds that I played with. And if you ask me how many times I went through the main story, I couldn't even begin to tell you. I went through each of the games at least a dozen times. Probably more. Probably a lot more. And more importantly, I was still playing them years after the games released. So all of this begs the question, if I love Elden Ring so much, why did I play it so little? Why am
I played Dark Souls 1 a lot. I feel like with Dark Souls 3, I pretty much played it once and then I played the mods for it. But I did play Dark Souls 1 a ton. I played through Bloodborne, I think, twice. I've done Sekiro 1.5 times. And that's about it.
not playing it right now? Why am I not constantly playing the PvP or going through the main story over and over, like I did in previous titles? And the answer, I think, is because it's so long. My first Elden Ring playthrough was very complete. It was about as complete as you could hope. I explored everywhere, and I did pretty much everything, and I don't think I missed on any of the quest lines that I wanted to do. And I was determined from the outset to play that way. I didn't want to miss anything. I wanted to go through all the caves, all the little dungeons, and I wanted to do them in order, so I wouldn't leave Limgrave until I had explored completely Limgrave.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to leave Liurnia until I was sure I had gotten everything in Liurnia. And at first, that served to be a magical experience. I loved Limgrave. It's still my favorite area. Wandering around and exploring and talking to NPCs, and going through all the mini-dungeons and all of it. I just thought it was all probably my favorite experience in Souls.
Okay.
If you had asked me how I felt about Elden Ring during the time where I was still exploring around Limgrave, I would have told you that this is the best Souls game. 100%. My favorite in the series. And then I moved on to Liurnia, and I did the same thing that I did in Limgrave, exploring all the places, talking to all the people, making sure I missed nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did the same thing for Lower Caelid, and then I did the same thing for the Altus Plateau. And this was extremely time-consuming. I was still having fun, but I was getting tired. I was running out of steam. At this point, I had poured more hours into Elden Ring than I would have into several playthroughs of any of the other games in the series.
Well, let's look at it on mine, right? So I have Elden Ring, and I've done one full playthrough of Elden Ring, plus probably, I would say the first playthrough took me 100 hours. Like, about 100 hours to play through the entire game. And also keep in mind, you didn't fully 100% it. No, I feel like nobody really fully 100%s it, but I played through it the first time. So let's compare this to Dark Souls 2. I played through Dark Souls 2 2 times. Actually, 2.5 times. And my total playtime is only 84 hours into the game. Dark Souls 3, I played through the game, I think, 3 or 4 times, including the mods. So that's only 200 hours into the game. Dark Souls 1, I have probably played through Dark Souls 1 40 times. So yes, Elden Ring. Oh, let's also look at Sekiro. Where is Sekiro? There it is. Only 33 hours, and I've completely beat the game. Right? Obtained purification ending. There we go. And that's also including time that I played it in another playthrough after that. Or sorry, before that, whenever I was doing it on stream. So yes, Elden Ring is much longer and much more involved than any other game. Does he complain that there's too much game? I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that it is what it is, right? Yeah, nobody's complaining about this, but there it is.
But there was still so much to go. It wasn't just the overworld areas. I was also exploring the underground areas, the three rivers and the eternal cities, which are huge themselves. My underground exploration took me all the way to the deep root depths. But after going through so much, I got there and I was like, is there an end? Is there ever going to be an end to this? I keep going and going, but there's always...
I remember feeling that way whenever I discovered that there was a second level of the entire map. And it's like the fucking Billy Mays, but wait, there's more! Yeah, it was insane.
More, there's always just more. And at the time it was still amazing, I was still in awe, but I could tell that I was getting tired. The repetitiveness of the little mini-dungeons were starting to get to me. But I was still having fun in the Altus Plateau and the Leyendale region. It helped that the environments were beautiful and the music was soothing. And it helped that it seemed like we were leading up to something. It helped that it seemed like we were getting closer to the end.
I am an MMO player, so monotony does not bother me. But I still do not think that Elden Ring beats the experience of Dark Souls 1 up into and including Anor Londo. I think if you take the gameplay experience of Dark Souls 1 beginning to Anor Londo meeting Guinevere and everything, this is the greatest segment in video game history. I do not think any other game... I don't think I've probably ever played any other game that's that good. However, after that, it's not very good. I don't think any of the Lord Vessel areas are good. I think that the Seath area is fucking annoying. The Ghost area where the Four Kings are is just a gimmick. Let's see, where are the other ones at? Oh, Nido is, again, a gimmick. Yeah, Tomb of the Giants. It's just, let's see. Newland, I don't remember the last one. The Academy, yeah, it's just annoying. It looks so good. Just get good? Bro, the problem is that you already are good. You are good. So you don't need to get good because you are good. Every other boss after fucking Ornstein and Smo is a joke. Seath the Scaleless is a joke. Nido is a joke. Let's see, what are the other bosses in the game? Pinwheel, okay? A joke. Let's see, Gwen is a joke. Bed of Chaos is a joke in many ways. Let's see, Moonlight Butterfly, a joke. Yes, Artorias, you cannot use DLC as part of the base game. You're right. The DLC bosses are not a joke. They are much harder. So you're playing a comedy game. Yeah, exactly. Elden Ring bosses or Nuke Masters, they do a lot of fucking damage. Manus is not a joke. Manus is the hardest boss in the game. Absolutely, without a question. However, what I'm saying is that the game falls off in the way that you grow and the difficulty curve that happens after Anor Londo. And I think that in Elden Ring, this is different. Because in Elden Ring, you do become more powerful in the end game more and more and more. Like, there is much more of a power curve in the game, whereas, like, in Anor Londo, your character is, like, almost as good as it's going to get. Like, for example, like, let's assume after Anor Londo, you go and you do Four Kings. Well, you're going to get Titanite chunks, and you go and you do Stray Demon, you get the slab. There it is, you're done. You've got your 15 weapon. That's as good as you're going to get for the rest of the playthrough. Minus, like, just getting more stat levels.
Of course, the actual legacy dungeons, like Leyendale, were great. They were as good and
insane.
probably better than a lot of the other dungeons that we had in other Souls games.
Infinitely better. This area is infinitely better than like Lothric Castle. It's not even a question. It's not even close, and there's like 3 of them in the game.
For me, Leyndell really left an impact. So at this point, everything was still okay. But then you get through Leyndell, you beat Morgott, and at that point, the only thing you have left is the Mountaintop of the Giants. So you get to the Erd Tree, and now you have to go off to the Mountaintop of the Giants.
Yes.
And that's really where the problem became super clear to me. The Mountaintop was the least interesting area in the game. It was visually unappealing, it was mostly linear, it had no interesting enemies. It didn't even have any new enemies, I don't think. It was all repeats from previous areas. What, you had the hands, you had the crows and the dogs, and you had the troll reskins. It was just terrible. I just didn't like any of it. I was exhausted. I was just exhausted of playing Elden Ring. But I was still determined to explore the entire location. I wanted to get the item descriptions, I wanted to read them, I wanted to get a full experience.
Okay.
But damn, when I was in the Mountaintops of the Giants, and I saw another one of those mini dungeons, and I'm just looking down into it, and I'm just like, God, I really just don't want to fucking do these mini dungeons anymore. I'm so tired, there's nothing.
Personally, I never felt this way. And maybe it's because I streamed the game. Because whenever you're streaming the game, it's a very different experience than whenever you are playing the game. So I'm not sure. I like this a lot. But I do think that he's right that this zone is the worst zone in the game. It doesn't mean it's a bad zone, but it's just the worst zone in the game.
Going to be a single thing interesting in there. And there wasn't. There almost never was. But you know, you power through. I powered through it. And then I beat the Mountaintop of the Giants. And then what does the game do? It sends me to Farum Azula. And at the time, I didn't really know why. I'm like, why am I here? Why am I in Farum Azula? Didn't I just burn the Erd Tree? Isn't that what I was trying to do? Why can't I just go in now? Yeah, in retrospect, you're there for the Rune of Death. But I didn't have that retrospect at the time. I was just confused. Why am I in this nice dragon area? Farum Azula itself was a perfectly fine area. It was enjoyable to go through. It was okay.
I liked Farum Azula, but again, I hope he says it. This area is also full of reskins. Most of the mobs in here are just the bosses in the early caves. The boss that's right here is just another one of the Tree Sentinel, Demonic Cavaliers. And then other than that, you do, of course, have, Malekith is a great boss. Plus Zodiax is a great boss. Godskin Duo is not a great boss.
But I think my appreciation of it just was not as good as it could have been because of how long it took to get there. The Mountaintop of the Giants left a really bad taste in my mouth. My whole first playthrough took like 250 hours, something along those lines. I was very thorough, explored everywhere I could find. It was a very complete playthrough.
Yeah.
But it was so complete, and it took so long, that I really just didn't want to play it again. And like I mentioned, that's not something that happened in the other Souls games I've played. I would usually make several builds, and finish the story half a dozen times, before I took a break. And that begs the question, well, why did this happen? Why did I get so angry I took a break? And that begs the question...
God damn it! Okay.
Well, why did this happen? Why did I get so exhausted after just one playthrough? And I'm not really 100% sure, but let me go ahead and just ramble on and speculate.
Because you have to invest 200 hours or 100 hours into finishing the game, and you're not going to get fulfillment out of the playthrough unless you finish the game with the build. So you don't want to go all the way through the game with the build because it takes so long. That's why. It's kind of like, ironically, the same thing that happened with Season of Mastery. Because it takes so long to go all the way through the game. It doesn't mean people didn't like Classic WoW. It just means that they already did it again. Or did it
First
before.
of all, I think it's the open world. A lot of the early joy for Elden Ring comes about from not knowing anything. You know, you go out and you explore.
This is a very good point.
You go into the mini dungeons, you traverse the land. It's really nice. You go out and figure out what's around the next bend. But when you do a really complete playthrough, You can't get that feeling again the next time around. You know what's around the next bend. You went down that bend. And the content around those little bends, the content in the open world, in the mini dungeons, they're not substantial. Like, they're not as substantial as something like the Legacy dungeons.
I do think that he's right about this part, that the mini dungeons do not have a lot of nuance to them. And the majority of the bosses inside of the mini dungeons are reskins or reused characters, whether it is the Stone Cats, the Crucible Knights, or let's see, what are some of the other ones that they've added multiple ones of? Those are probably the two that I can think of right off the top of my head. It's filler content, yeah.
The Legacy dungeons I find enjoyable no matter how many times I do them. But the open world really only had an appeal for me while I was exploring it the first time. Once I know what's there, it doesn't hypnotize me into wandering around like it did before.
And that's why girls should never post nudes on OnlyFans. They should only post, like, scandalous, like, photos. So that way, everybody is always still guessing. Right? Because the moment that you post your titties, nobody's wondering anymore.
Which is sad, because wandering around Limgrave is probably some of the most fun I've had in any Souls games. It's a precious memory that I can't seem to recreate anymore. Another reason that makes multiple playthroughs difficult for me is that there's no by default solo host invasion anymore. Typically I make multiple builds at several different levels so I can invade in different areas of the game. And getting randomly invaded while my builds are not yet prepared really spiced up that experience.
Yeah.
It shoots in a little excitement into the monotony of build making. And that doesn't really happen in Elden Ring. I could turn on the Taunter's Tongue, which would let it happen, but it's not the same, really. Because first of all, it's no longer a surprise, and the Taunter's Tongue doesn't have a cooldown, which means you'll get invaded back to back. How invasions worked before in previous games where you could get invaded solo was that after you got invaded, if you killed the invader, you wouldn't get invaded again for a while.
It's like a half hour.
There was a cooldown where you could progress through the level before you had to deal with another invasion. It's fun to get invaded, but if it's happening constantly, that doesn't give you the opportunity to make progress on your build.
Yeah, you can't play your
And
character.
finally, when you do get the build done, I think that Elden Ring has less interesting PvP mechanics than Dark Souls 3 had. I've heard it's gotten a lot better lately.
I'm not sure if I agree with that or not. I actually would want to see examples of that being the case.
With recent patches. But on release, the Ash of War damage was so high. So incredibly high.
This has been patched.
Damage in general in Elden Ring just is much higher than it was in Dark Souls. And with everybody spamming their favorite high-damaging weapon art in duels and in invasions, it got really boring really quickly.
I could see
and
that.
Actually, even mechanically, how duels worked and how invasions worked was way less interesting. In Dark Souls 3, you can summon up to 5 red phantoms at a time, which was fantastic, because this is what resulted in the whole Fight Club thing. A host that wanted to start a fight club could summon, 5 red phantoms. And a culture developed where the phantoms that weren't participating in the current duel would back off, wait at the side of the ring, and then they would wait their turn. When one of the red phantoms died, another of the red phantoms went forward. And they'd just keep doing this until the host himself got tired of summoning phantoms and wanted to participate himself and got killed. I always really liked this duel culture. If a phantom got impatient and just really wanted to attack the host, all the other phantoms would take offense and attack him, killing him. And in fact, some red phantoms would go there specifically to do that, specifically to draw the ire of the other duel participants. Either so that he can fight them all at once, or so he could kill the host before they could stop him.
And troll, yeah.
Sadly, in Elden Ring, you can't do that. You can only summon 2 red phantoms at a time in Elden Ring, which is...
I don't think that they should have made it to where you can only invade in groups of 2, invade groups of 2 people. I don't think that you should have to do that. The reason why is because getting invaded is totally optional. You can turn off getting invaded. That's what, there's no reason. Like, I would agree that you should only be able to invade 2v1 if you couldn't turn off invasions. But because you can turn off invasions, you should just make invasions 1-to-1. Because PS4? Why would it be because of PS4? Why would PlayStation 4 innately make it to where you can't invade solo. Bro, what? Yeah, I like, what the fuck are you talking about? You know, there was 2 people that said this. I didn't get 1 guide. I got 2 guide. Yeah, Dark Souls 3 is on PS4. Like, yeah, I'm like, what the fuck?
Just not the same.
I thought I didn't know something.
Oh, and you know what's also fun? In Dark Souls 3, there were places where you would get invaded by Covenant groups. Covenants. I miss those. Don't you miss those? I miss those a lot. If you entered these areas, people would get called if they were in that Covenant to come defend it. And so what it was fun to do was go into these areas, activate the Taunter's Tongue so that there's no cooldown so you can just keep getting invaded constantly. And seeing how many you can take down before you die.
I've never done
Which could
this.
be brutal because there could be up to 3 Covenant members coming at a time, plus whatever Red Phantoms came out. And if you're in that Covenant, a lot of the times you can go in there and you'll see this group of gankers that are just there killing the Phantoms as soon as they appear, killing your invaders. And what was often fun was to wait around, hide until more backup shows up, and then as soon as you see them, you together go in and attack them as a group.
Yeah.
You can have these big 3v3s. And it'd be super fun because it could take a really long time to actually get a win in one of these. Maybe the group that you're invading, the gankers, are actually pretty good, and they keep taking out your fellow Phantoms.
I do think that, like, what he's really getting at here is that there's no real PvP culture in Elden Ring in the same way that there was in Dark Souls 3. I have not done this enough to be certain about this being true, but it seems to be true for me. It's because it's a different game. I think you can pretty much assume that the same people that played Dark Souls 3 would be playing Elden Ring.
But if things are moving at a high pace, another one will get summoned before long, and so this, these engagements, these skirmishes, can last a while. If they take out both of your Phantoms, you can retreat, run back to the enemies, or if there are no enemies, just run around trying to not die long enough for more people to come in and help you.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was amazing. And it's not an Elden Ring. Just completely not there. Obliterated from existence with no replacement. So, there, those are my complaints. Game was so long it got exhausting. The magic of the open world can't be recreated for subsequent playthroughs.
Good point.
Duels are less interesting without fight clubs, and invasions are less interesting without covenants. And that's the end of this video.
The good thing about that is these are all things they can patch into the game. Yeah, these are all things they can patch into the game. And I think that they should be able to. There's no reason not to.
As always, thank you very much for watching.
It's a good video. It is. It's a very good video. I liked it. Hard to disagree. What do people disagree? I hear a lot of L takes, but I don't hear a lot of actual comments about this. Let's see. They can't patch that as completionist. There isn't more novelty. Replay comes in leaving something undone. Yeah, but that's something that's going to happen in every game. Yeah, sure. PvP was really bad in Elden Ring versus every other Souls game. That's because some of the weapons were outliers. And that's what I said before about how, like, outliers and, like, overpowered weapons make games not fun. They don't make games fun, they make them not fun. With the DLC, they could add the PvP stuff. Yeah, they absolutely should. Because I think he brings up a lot of very good points. Because a lot of the people that continuously play Elden Ring every single day, they care about the PvP a lot because that's what they do all the time, right? I mean, like these PvP videos, like most Elden Ring channels are built around either PvP or lore. Like that's really what it comes down to. And if the PvP content is not rewarding and fun to play, then people are going to lose interest. Obviously, people have a lot of, like, there is a very good reason to believe that the DLC will be the Colosseum that you see at the top of Landell. I think it's where it is. I don't remember exactly. And it will have PvP features with it. I think there's actually even leaks of the DLC with somebody being inside the Colosseum. So I just hope that's what happens because I think that he brings up a lot of really good points here. I think that all of these things are pretty much true. I think the only one that I would dispute on a personal level is that I didn't feel exhausted finishing the game. I actually was just like it was just so good. It was so fucking good because like it was like you played so much and there's still more. And I'm like, yes, this is amazing. And I remember thinking whenever I was fighting Godfrey, and I kind of knew that like the next boss was going to be the last boss. And it was like, fuck, man, I don't want to beat him. You know, I was sad. I quit at Margit. Well, you shouldn't have fought him as soon as you started the game. You probably wouldn't have quit. Did the exact same thing. Never really felt exhausted, just stressing out about, damn, I'm dumping too much time into this. Oh, I didn't. I feel him though. I got burned out. They go to the mountain, the top of the giants. Actually took a 3-minute break of the game. Same reason he was exhausted. Basically, I was 100%ing it, and that's always exhausting. Yeah, and that's too. You didn't complete all the dungeons, so you felt way better. Really? You think I didn't complete all the dungeons? I feel like I completed a lot of them. Like, I probably completed like 90% of the dungeons. No, I probably did not do every single dungeon. But I did a lot.